Okay, hello, hello. And right, everybody, we are just waiting on Tara. Hello, hello. Thanks for joining. Going to be talking a little bit about emotions today. Tara will be joining us shortly. Hi, AJ. There's a lot of overlap with Chinese medicine and the current situation at hand. My good friend and colleague Tara met her in acupuncture school. She's also an incredible energy healer, psychic. I'll let her tell you her actual official title, but waiting for her to get on. Ah, here she is. Let's get her joined.
Hey now.
Oh, hi.
Good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see your face.
So good to see yours.
Where are you right now? In
I'm in
Kentucky?
Kentucky. Yep,
Okay. How are you liking it? How's everything going there?
it's good. It's been really nice. Having lots of pets around is really nice. That's something I missed in LA.
Yeah. Well, you got to take care of my pet. You got to take care of Bailey.
I did. It was lovely.
I know she has another injury right now, but
Aw.
but she's doing well with
Trying to
her
keep up
rehab
with you
walking
guys in
around.
your workouts?
Yes, she's trying. Yeah, it's so nice to see you. I started before you got on, about to talk a little bit about, the emotions and overlap with Chinese medicine. And then I started to introduce you, and I was like, well, she wears so many hats. Let her introduce herself. So, can you just go over like what you would tell someone if they're like, what do you do and how do you do it?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for all of that, first of all. So I'm an intuitive and a healer, and I've sort of just started really understanding where my work is sort of streamlining, where it's going, how it's all working together. My study of Chinese medicine is definitely something that informs my energetic understanding of people really well. But I work a lot with spiritual and sensitive people to kind of unpack what's going on in their lives and to unpack their development in their spiritual and personal growth, and just helping them to kind of figure out their path and like what's going on right now so that they can take their next steps in the best way. And energy healing has been something that has really opened through my work. I think that you you were so wonderful when you supported me doing my energy work with like my first day in a space. You were like, I'm coming in.
Yeah.
And that has just really grown, and I think Chinese medicine gave me so much of a lens to begin working with um, everyone and their feelings and their energies in a different way. So it's been really beautiful to start blending everything together. For a long time I was wearing a million hats. Now I'm like wearing one, but it's like really big.
Okay. That's the clarification I wanted because I know when we were, in school together, I'm like, yeah, we were in school together, just at like different levels in the program. But, I saw you come in at such an early stage as a student and then saw you just grow so much. And then by the time like leaving Emperors, it was like, yeah, you had so many hats and so many different ways. And I was thinking, how is she going to end up like putting these all into the one big hat to help people because you had so many tools at that point. So
Thank
I'm
you.
happy
And
it's
I
kind of
think,
like
the hat is still being built, but I think for a lot of people, our paths are about learning and picking things up as we go, and like one day it's going to grow into something that it's meant to be, and we just don't know. So what you were seeing, I was also feeling. I was like, I don't know. I just know that right now this is what I need to do next. So that's kind of how I live my life, is just like, where is where do I need to steer this ship next?
Yeah. I think there's a common misconception, and maybe it's like just not something we talk about. Like there's this misconception that as people who help other people, that we just have it all figured out. And that's
That's
not
true.
really the case. Like we're also still experiencing and trying to figure things out and see what's the best fit. Like my road as a practitioner has evolved a lot, I think, and we'll get into this a little bit with, I think this is a time for people to really experience a lot of change, a lot of growth, and, evolution. It's allowing us this opportunity to kind of check in and say, okay, where are we at? We're missing all of these things in day-to-day life, but are we really missing them? Or is
Yeah.
it just that was what was normal for us and what was comfortable, and now this is uncomfortable? So I think there's a lot of emotions that come up with that, and we're not immune to the experience.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of the feelings we're having is covering up the possibilities that are here. And that is what we have to sort of unpack. I mean, that's really what we're talking about, right? Is identifying the feelings in order to go through them and under them and explore all around them instead of just letting them cloud us, because otherwise we will look back at everything we miss, or the overwhelm, the potential overwhelm of where we're at. So I think that's a really important thing to see, that the emotions are actually covering up the potentials, the possibilities.
Yeah. And what I like and I love that you've incorporated Chinese medicine. Like it's just been like another tool, like you said, a lens to help you see things more clearly. That's certainly what it was for me. Like when I was, working in Western medicine and doing physical therapy, I had all these questions that were not being answered. And Chinese medicine was a tool to start identifying patterns, to start, applying these theories to actual patients and seeing, oh, this is really interesting how this actually plays out. And we were talking about like the lung and the kidney when it comes to Chinese medicine. And, in Chinese medicine, organs are not like necessarily our physical organs that, we learn anatomically. But there's, all of this different information associated with each one, whether it's patterns. Today we're talking about emotions. But, this like virus that's going around the world, it's a respiratory situation. And the lung in Chinese medicine, not only is it a huge player when it comes to the immune system and protecting you, but, weakened lungs, you're susceptible to grief, to sadness. Like that is the emotion of the lung. And then, a nice, healthy, happy lung is associated with clear thinking and like mindedness. So kind of what you were talking about we're, allowing things to block what could be a really potentially positive thing right now, to be able to be more clear-minded about, what do we want. And that really plays into the kidney as well, because the kidney is like a healthy kidney is your willpower. It's your strength. It's the foundation of everything that we have. But the emotion associated with it is fear. So if we're letting that fear dampen, our very core, it's really hard then to have the lungs be supported, our immune system be supported, to be able to effectively grieve and let go of things that are not serving us. And then to have that open-minded, creative, clear thinking structure that would be amazing at this time.
Yeah. I love how you bring up the difference in the lung with the grief and then the additional emotions that are associated with it, or we could call them powers, right? Like they're powers that we can call upon in ourselves, and sometimes we forget that we have them. And I feel like when we forget that there's something, there's like a positive counterpart to what are sometimes called negative feelings, we can use that negative feeling to get to it and really explore it and find out um, where it's leading us. And it's interesting too that you talked about, grieving and letting go. I do think a lot of people are feeling the grief, are feeling the shift into letting go, and they don't know what to do with it. Are you seeing that with your people that you're virtually seeing, obviously?
Yeah, no, I am. And I think that's, well, and something you kind of alluded to, like we sometimes say negative emotions. Like, I don't think any of those emotions are negative. It's like, well, we need to grieve right now. There's not one person in this entire world that can say every single thing that they've been putting their time and energy toward, like everything is absolutely serving them to the best, of their ability in life. So there are things for anyone that we need to be conscious of letting go right now. And it's okay to grieve something. Like there's a difference between missing something and like not wanting it back. So to be able to like grieve and let go so that we can have more clear thinking as far as like how do we want to progress forward. And I think people are, we're struggling with that because a lot of times we go through our day to day having to hold that in, like, oh, we don't have time for this. Oh, like we need to be on to the next thing. Like I don't have time to deal with that right now. So I'm just, going to keep it in and not process it. And sometimes it's intentional and sometimes it's not. It's just like day to day takes over. But this has been kind of a reality check for a lot of people. Like nobody can say like you don't have time or that you can't control the space you're in. There's just a lot of reevaluating going on. So I'm absolutely seeing that with patients right now. Yeah. Are you seeing that with people you're working with?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. The biggest thing that I've done recently to help hold space in this situation was just a big free group healing that I offered out to my audience and anyone really. And we had a pretty good group last Wednesday. Is that right? Yeah, Wednesday. And the biggest thing that I spoke to, because I always kind of speak intuitively, I kind of let my guides tell me what I'm going to talk about in the beginning of sessions and what's going to come forward. And I kept hearing that there was this really important like groundedness that we had to work on emotionally to kind of get into holding our own space for our feelings so we don't let it like rock us, and then giving ourselves this understanding that that we're safe, that we're literally safe as we are, because those feelings are making us feel unsafe. They're making us feel like literally like we're losing something, instead of that we're letting go, because letting go is a choice. But when we feel like something is taken, that we're losing it, it's like something is being done to us, right? And so it's that, yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, it's like the Tony Robbins quote, I think it's him, right? That said, life isn't happening to you, it's for you. And that is so hard. It's so hard to think about that, to deal with thinking about it, especially if we've been through a lot of trauma, if we're a really sensitive person, if we're not able-bodied, if we have all these different things coming at us from our external worldview that other people see, and we kind of are like, how do I fit? How do I fit in my unique way? And how is that for me? Especially when it doesn't feel good. And right now, tons of people are kind of being thrown into that. How could this possibly be for me? And I feel that holding that space for people to like kind of come to those realizations is really hard. And I was going to ask you how you encourage your patients to grieve, to let go, to explore that, what your process is to hold that as a practitioner. And of course we have like acupuncture points for it, right? And that's so powerful. I mean, it's powerful just to touch them. We can be like, here, like these are points we need to work on. Right. And people can feel that. But how do we literally like hold that and encourage that? So I don't know if you want to speak to that, but that was my curiosity. I'm going to go with you.
I mean, to go back to what we initially said, like we're not immune to everything. Like we don't have, the superpowers or all the answers, but, that's like something I just try to get better at each and every day when I work with people. Because I know for me, when I first experienced acupuncture as a patient, that was the only time that I was processing. That was the only time that I allowed myself to process emotions, to grieve. And this was when I was in school. You know, I had gone through a lot and just hadn't figured out how to process that. And, you know, it was uncomfortable for me because it would be like, okay, this is like my therapy time. Like I'm coming in and I'm like crying while I have needles in. And it would feel, you know, sometimes I'd feel so much better after. Sometimes I would feel exhausted after, but it was all part of this process. And I was just trusting the process. So when I have patients who are going through a similar experience, because I remember my acupuncturist saying this to me, like, all of this is going to make you a better practitioner. And I just wanted to punch him in the face at the time because, you know, you're going through something and you're like, I'm worried about me and my feelings right now. So I always try to keep that in mind, whether it's like, okay, a patient's running 10 minutes late. I'm not like getting extra work done during that time. I'm still like that time, their scheduled time is their time. And, you know, when they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I'm 5 minutes late. Hey, this is your time. Like, I understand traffic's, but like, it's your choice if you want to spend that like racing through traffic in the hallway or if you want to spend it on the treatment table, but know that this space is being held for you and nothing is going to like come in and interrupt that. And that actually is really helpful to people because a lot of people go through life and they don't have space being held for them. Even if it's an hour during the day, they feel like their day is for other people or for other purposes, or, you know, they're constantly like putting their passions on the back burner. And so I understand the power of having an hour session that's like 100% about you. And that's done whether it's virtual or whether it's in the office. So I'm still treating right now in person. You know, in California, acupuncture is primary care, it's essential healthcare. And, you know, treating people who need treatment, there's a lot more that goes into that now, as far as like PP, wiping everything down. But I'm still there for people because I know like the power of needles. I also want to provide a virtual option because not everybody can physically come to me. Not everybody feels comfortable leaving their home. You know, they're like, I'm just on lockdown, I'm not leaving. And so acupressure has been helpful for that too. Herbs have been helpful for that too. But with my virtual sessions, a lot of it ends up being talking because people just need space held for them. So however that works out, whether it's like your time is talking in office and on the treatment table, whether it's we're doing acupressure and I'm helping you prescribe herbs, they know that that space is being held for them. And I think setting that intention and constantly reminding a patient of that is really powerful.
Yeah, I love that.
How are you doing this virtually though? Because I had a healing session from you in person, and I will say, I think for a lot of people that know me, they'd be like very interested in that because I'm like this super like I can be a very like analytical, like scientific person. And there are things when it comes to Chinese medicine, when it comes to you know, any type of energetic healing, anything spiritual, like it's like, okay, well, you just have to experience it. And that was very impactful for me to have a session with you in person. So how is that working on a virtual level? Is it something that has translated easily? Because I know, like, again, with all of your hats that are becoming one big hat, there's a lot of different ways you can help people, but is energy healing one of them virtually? Like, how is that working?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a really good question. And I want to say about you that I've always loved that you can hold both. You know, I once read like Liz Gilbert is like, I can, you know, read like science magazines and also like go to Bali and like, you know, go on these retreats and be super spiritual. There's no like opposition here. We can have them both. And, you know, reading that in my life, I was like, God, that's true. And I used to think of them as opposite myself. And part of what held me back from my spirituality. Oh, I think I lost you. Did I lose you?
Nope, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Things went fuzzy for a minute. But, you know, kind of letting myself hold both was a journey through acupuncture school. I think that I started acupuncture thinking like, I probably, you know, can't support myself as an intuitive. Like, why would I do that so early in my life? Like, I really need something more legitimate, which I think is something that is old paradigm and we can move out of. So anyone listening to that, if you believe you're part of that, like dive into the new paradigm, you know, create your own kind of decisions and move forward. But seeing people that could hold both was really important for me. So stepping forward into my spiritual beliefs and being out about them, about what I was capable of doing and knew I was capable of doing, but was afraid of what other people might think or how it was limited by the current boundaries of science and the current explanations of science, especially with the scientific method. So it's interesting here, acupuncture and chiropractic aren't considered primary care, so they're closed. I had to drive all the way to another state yesterday to get a chiropractic appointment because it's not available, and it won't be available for weeks. I mean, potentially months, right? Mm-hmm. So the scientific method can be difficult because as we learned at school, and I feel like you might have said this to me once, like there are other ways to scientifically look at things besides the scientific method. And I was like, my mind was blown at that point. I was like, really? Like, I thought that was it. But that version of proving things, there are other ways, like cumulative research, like acupuncture is cumulative evidence, right? It's over time and it's over very wise use of it. So all of that being said, energy work and being a psychic, that's not scientifically understandable because science ends at the skin. Anything that's beyond the skin, nothing can be communicating. That's what it's said right now. And so it's like, that's not possible. And yet it is. So then we look at parapsychology, then we look at like noetic science and things like that that are trying to explore what are thoughts? What are they? Like what substance are they? Can we find that? Parapsychology like just has the cumulative research of how throughout eons people have weird experiences of knowing what's going on with their mother or their sister or whoever when it's happening. That's like a weird thing that we can't truly prove yet, but it's real. So anyway, once I really embraced that, you know, I started being more comfortable saying, oh, okay, like I'm a psychic medium, like I can speak with spirit, I can do these things. And even when I get into doubt myself, because I have like a scientific brain as well, like I can be analytical as well. What I rely on is like the wild sessions that I'll have with a client when I'm doing a reading for a client. And I'm like, there's no way I could have known that. No way. That's not me. That's something else telling me. And just being able to hear it and say it is the work. It's trusting. And so with all of that being said, energy healing is essentially happening whether you're in the room or not. It's also happening during a reading. So a lot of my client feedback, my first year and a half doing readings before I offered distance healing, which is virtual, right? And we don't even need to meet really. They would say, I'm already feeling better. Like I'm already feeling a difference. And I'm like, well, there's a healing happening. There's something there. And so when I do virtual healing sessions, essentially, I'm going into a state called trance meditation, and my energy and my guides are working with you. The distance does not matter. And in certain aspects of spirituality, especially spiritualism, which is all about mediumship, they say there are no boundaries on spirit. That's just our minds putting them there. So thinking we need to be in the room is literally like a human constraint. And it took me until last August to really just trust and be like, I'm going to do distance sessions. And the reason I did it is because my healer works at a distance. The healer I trust the most right now is like 2,000 miles away. And that's still who I have my sessions with. And so I was like, okay, if that's benefiting me, surely I can benefit others. And I would say it's becoming like the core of my work because people are just feeling that and realizing the boundarylessness of everything. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely makes sense. And it's really powerful to think, you know, that setup was done before this pandemic happened. Like that was something that you realized and started moving towards. And now there's like an essential need for it. Like people don't even have the option, you know, to go in person. So you think it's just, again, like one of the things that are not proven in scientific method, but something like that shows you, well, there's got to be something to this. Like if I had this realization, like it came from somewhere, I take comfort in the fact that knowing that there's like a bigger picture than me. It would be very stressful for me if it was like just all about me. So I love thinking that there's, something larger than myself that's helped driving things. We had one question about emotion.
Cool.
Should we be striving for awareness that we can heal through our emotions? Most might not know how to do this. I feel like we kind of spoke on that a little bit earlier. I'll let you take the bulk of this. The only thing I would have to say is the reframing around emotions, I think, is really important. Like we talked about, the lung with grief and thinking, oh my gosh, this is happening to me. This is so awful, rather than, wow, this is an opportunity to let something go and let go of things that aren't serving us. So I would think with healing through emotions, that's my personal opinion on it. It's about reframing the emotion, like being aware of it, and then seeing like, how is this actually here for you and a benefit for you? What are your thoughts?
I think reframing is so important. And I used to really believe like, if you can reframe your story, you can rewrite your life. I used to be so like, I would think about that a lot. But what I feel for me is that sometimes it's like there's no reframe possible and I get stuck. And so when I get stuck, what I have to start doing is being so with it that it starts to bring up like layers that are underneath it. So for instance, if I'm in really deep grief about something and it brings up maybe a lot of triggered memories, or maybe I'm triggered at my chiropractor yesterday, which I was. Maybe I'm, triggered by a client call. Like, like all these things can come up because of that primary feeling. And I can start to be like, why, what is this trigger showing me? Is it showing me how the relationship with a certain parent in my life, with my primary parent, wasn't giving me something I needed? Was this relationship from like when I was 18 holding something that's still bothering me, that I've never reclaimed part of myself from? Like maybe there's something that I need back in my power, that I need back in my energy. And it's interesting because a lot of times in my healing work, because I go into like a meditation and I'm like talking to my guides and listening to the ethers, we'll kind of go back in time and I'll see something happening to someone at a certain age and I'll come back and I'll tell them about it. And they will know that situation and they will be like, that is what happened. And the gift that came out of that situation is like the answer that they've been needing, or it's the healing that they've been needing. And so that's what I have to look for myself when I get too stuck. And then eventually we'll get to the reframe, right? Because it'll be like, thank goodness I had that. Like, thank goodness I was in those emotions for so long, because it served a really big purpose. And some of them are like emotions that are passed down through family. Some of them have a lot to do with race, gender, the kinds of oppression that's in the world. And so those are probably bigger things to unpack about our own story, but also about our ancestors and our current live family members that are also processing those feelings themselves. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, well, Frank says thank you. You're welcome. I hope that does help. Tara, this has been amazing. I could literally talk to you forever. I think in the future, I need to have you on my podcast when we get back to filming. So thankfully, we had done all of these episodes and filmed before this happened, before the stay at home. So like, again, an intuitive thing, which you're always trying to help me with this, telling me like, Nell, you are an intuitive person. You need to listen. I was obsessed when we were going to launch this podcast at the beginning of March. I was like, well, I need like a dozen episodes filmed. Like, I don't, even though we're putting them out every other week, I can't. Like, I need to know we have some in the bank. We're going to get busy. Things are going to happen. And I know I seemed like a crazy person. And now I'm like, thank God we're staying on schedule with the podcast. So.
Yeah, I completely agree. Having some in the bank is so smart, but it's literally for your like mental calm and it matters. So I'm glad you did too.
No,
That's so
so
important.
I love to have you on once we get back to filming because I think there's so much interesting work that you do, and you are someone who has like both sides. Like you are very analytical. I mean, you could discuss a scientific journal with the best of them.
Thank you.
So, it's really impactful, I think, to hear from someone like you who can see both sides and blend them so well. Um, so yeah, it's been amazing talking to you. Is there anything I always want to say? Is there anything else you want to say before we hop off?
I just want to tell everyone to just keep trusting, trust yourself, but just trust. Just try to relax into trust and try to be with yourself, be present in each moment. I mean, that's really what the biggest message I have during this time because it's helping me. It's helping me hold it down in my house and with my family. And I think if you can keep yourself steady, you can keep anything steady. But thank you so much for your kind words. And I was so lucky to be at school when you were, and you were just so important. And thank you for being able to hold that space of reflection for me to see someone who can hold both. I think having people like you in the world, it's so important to be visible, right? It gives people this image to realize like, okay, like I can be like that too. And so once we can lift up ourselves against that image, then we're really taken care of to move forward in the right ways for us with those people that resonate. So thank you for being that for me.
I so appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you. I think we're all just like doing the best
I've
that we
always loved you so much now. You know I'd do anything for you. Always.
Well, I'm so happy you joined. It was amazing to see your face. If you guys are not following, you need to. I pinned both of our handles at the bottom. Introspection, coolest name ever.
Download.
Yeah. So yeah, wonderful to see you, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Have a great
Bye.
day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.